Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. After much speculation over the last couple of months as to what the future holds for the greatest controller FPS player of all time in Matthew FormaL, Piper, Scump and FormaL over the last few days have practically confirmed what that future holds. A departure from Halo more than likely at the end of the season. Does that mean, especially with Black Ops 6 on the horizon, a return to Call of Duty could be on the cards? Where would FormaL even slot in if he was to return to the league? Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. First of all, we've got a few things to discuss on that Ravens versus FaZe series yesterday because it was ugly for Ravens. Again, they've now played 3 games this stage. They've lost all 3 in Game 5. They play Thieves today. Thieves, a team that loves to go Game 5. So, well, we'll see what the future holds on that. This as well, Drazah just responded because I noticed this during the broadcast. I was like, hang on a second. Who was that just ran past TJ as he calls in the streak? And actually, yeah, it was Drazah, right? TJ lays down. Drazah just comes running on by, doesn't even notice the guy. Drazah's like, hang on a second, I need to pay closer attention to that in the future. There was some further response as well to the referee drama that we talked about yesterday. If you guys didn't watch the series, it was 1-1 in the Game 2 Search and Destroy. Ravens up 1-0 in map count. The round was just about to get underway and TJ lags out of the game. So you would think that immediately that's a pause, right? That's okay, you know, the round shouldn't even get underway. But the referee was probably washing the dishes or whatever, didn't have the time to execute this, and therefore, you know, like the referees have got to pay attention, right? We talk about this at this point every month or so, that there's some sort of drama the referee doesn't seem to be doing much. I don't know what the protocol actually is here. Maybe the ref was paying attention. We don't really know. But Ravens expected the round to be paused, and it wasn't. They played the round. They won the round 3 versus 4, and then they got the round win for that. However, you can guarantee if they'd have lost the rounds, it would have been, okay, you know, let's replay it. That's what Dashy's saying here that gave them an unfair advantage. And as fella says, yeah, I agree. That was a crazy precedent to set. As soon as it happened, we got no reply when we talked to the refs. We're like, hey, ref, like, what are we doing? They got no reply. They played out the round. They won it. Lose for the other team. Ref was silent on our side too. You'd think someone would let us know what was going on. So, you know, I mean, how many stories like this are we going to have? This as well is pretty ugly, so avert your eyes if you're a Clay or TJ fan. But Clay's streak of not beating the Tiny Terrors now goes to, well, 1,119 days, I guess 1,120 as of today. It's not been great. I think he's lost the last 12 times he's played them now. But for Tej, it's actually even worse. The last time that Tej beat these guys was literally Black Ops 4, pre-CDL. It was this series in the early, I think this might have been Fort Worth maybe, back in Black Ops 4 with an OpTic team of Karma and Tej and Scump Crim. And of course Dashy, the other one, was in the winners finals of Major 3 in Cold War. This was online, but Subliners took down FaZe 3-2, and then they lost in the finals to FaZe later on that tournament. So, you know, this is basically the last couple of times that these guys have beaten the Tiny Terrors. I'm sure there's plenty of players that have, you know, not dissimilar records, but it's still pretty ugly, isn't it? Not gonna lie. And as Drazah says, GG's Ravens 1-3-2, played super mid, teammates came out swinging. This was funny as well. So after the game 2, Benjay and the team tweeted this. Huge problem for ATL going forward if they can't get aBeZy going in search. He's having issues getting the opening duels, which is maybe true. Certainly on a map like Invasion, it ain't easy to get the opening duel wins and all this stuff, but obviously after winning the series and hitting the reverse sweep, aBeZy then in the replies, quote tweets Cellium's tweet, which is the classic BenJayDeceives routes, which, you know, I guess I'll just play out to its conclusion again because it's just too good, isn't it? There is always caveats to this, right? Because I'm pretty sure when Ben did this, it was literally day 1 of the game, but I mean, it still does make me laugh when he tries to jump out of the map there. Couple of things as well on Black Ops 6. It's coming out later this year. We're thinking it's going to be like October time. It's going to be, as I said yesterday, a very interesting off-season because the World Championship is in July, the Esports World Cup is in August, then there's like September, and then in October, probably the end of October, the game comes out more than likely. That is probably the time frame they're going to be going for. Black Ops 6 will reportedly allow players to sprint, slide and dive in all directions, which is kind of similar movement to this. So I don't really know how this is even going to work. How do you even execute this stuff? Like if I'm sprinting forwards, how am I just going to dive backwards? Like how does the momentum really work there? I guess the idea is if I'm moving in a certain direction, you know, like let's say in games with jetpacks, when if you jumped and then you went sideways, you could slide sideways around the corner. We might be seeing something rather similar here again. But we're talking about omnidirectional movement. I guess we'll see what Trek have cooked up here. It's always, every COD game has something that has been, you know, you can argue changed for the sake of change, and sometimes it's good change and sometimes it's unnecessary change, and we've seen lots of unnecessary change over the last several years. Hopefully this is good change, we'll see. But of course, every time we talk about movement in Call of Duty games, there's always talk about Shotzzy and the fact that he's going to like it. Shotzy's pretty good at this game, if you hadn't noticed, and there are some interesting movement things that you can abuse. We talked about it right at the start of the game as well, when if you're sliding, you can do that like halve the tack slide, basically, in this game, which is not really used in competitive, but nonetheless indicative of a pretty good player that Shotzzy is. There's also this in Black Ops 6, classic prestige system returning. Now this was probably the thing that caused the most uproar on a positive element, if that's even a thing, yesterday in the community, because people have been wanting this now for so long, to go back to a traditional prestige system where you start prestige 0, you rank it up to level 55, then you go back to prestige 1, level 0. Like, it was such a good system, and I just don't really know what compels the decision makers to move away from it, but that is apparently what's going to be happening. And yeah, hopefully this leak is absolutely bang on the money when the game comes out in a few months time. But let's talk about this FormaL thing, because one player that could be playing COD again is potentially FormaL. The Halo scene in general is always in an interesting spot. Scump was playing with FormaL the other day, some xDefiant. They were having a good time, and they were discussing what the future of their respective careers might be. Scump's set, you know, he's got the stream, he's got the watch party, he's loving life. FormaL was a competitive Halo player, then a competitive Call of Duty player, and is now a competitive Halo player again. He won the World Champs in COD in 2017, and then he won the World Championship in Halo in 2022, and wasn't too far off going back-to-back last year. But naturally, with Halo, the game doesn't get the support that maybe it needs. Like, just the fact that Halo Infinite has died so, not even so rapidly, but it's just, the reality is that game's fallen off so bad. Like, if you look at the Twitch numbers on how many people are actually just watching people play Halo Infinite, it's just so low, and the viewership for the competitive scene is not great either, despite some good storylines and players and all this stuff that we have seen. There's been some drama in Halo, but the reality is it's just not as well supported as a competitive game as Call of Duty is. That's kind of always been the case. The fact that they don't get a new game every year, I think in some sense does hurt them, because after year 2, year 3 of playing the game, the scene just tends to die rather rapidly. So the question has been for a little bit of time, what's FormaL going to do in the future? There was a clip a few days ago where FormaL basically looked at Major 3 in Toronto and said, damn, why am I still playing Halo? Like, this COD stuff is absolutely fire. And this is what Scump has to say on FormaL's point of view.
Amari with a 5, he said, so after the Halo season's over, T2P's back? Dude, Matt went rogue on stream this morning. I don't know if you realize, you guys
I heard you were talking about Apex or something.
He basically said he's like not playing next year.
Halo?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Like in the most like nonchalant way possible.
Really?
Yeah. On stream. Just
I'm done competing?
10,000 viewers on Twitch.
What do you say? How do you say it exactly?
We were just talking about like us playing together, and I mean I haven't played with Matt in a while, like just playing anything.
Yeah, I saw you guys play xDefiant.
And he was like, "Yo, this off season, like let's play Apex and shit." And I was like, "All right, bet." And then he's like, "But you're playing Halo until October," and he just like set it up like, "Yeah, but after that." I don't remember exactly how he said.
Was he saying like after that there's a long off season, or after that he's done?
No, he said I can't see myself scrimming Halo a whole nother year.
Oh shit.
And then I was like, do you see yourself fucking going back to COD? And he was like, well, at this point everything would have to be perfect with the COD team. They'd have to be getting shit on. The game would have to be really good, which all makes sense. Oh, KO4? But yeah, I mean,
Oh, he said if there's no new maps, then he's done. So he just bored of the actual game.
I was mind blown.
I can respect that.
I was fucking.
So this is the Halo schedule for the season, right? So we just had that London major in the UK that FaZe won. They beat OpTic in the grand finals. Then we've got the Atlanta major at the end of July. Then there's a major in September, Salt Lake City, and then the World Championship in Seattle. It's not the greatest formats, and you know, there's open series, there's all this qualifiers and stuff like this, but maybe it's not the end of the world. And there's 3 more tournaments from now to the end of the season. But Frosty made it clear, apparently even at London's major, that he's apparently told his team, or certainly made it quite publicly known, that Frosty may be considering a Call of Duty return. I think most players feel that this year might be the last good year for this Halo game. They really have no clue, I think, what the roadmap's going to be for next season, what the HES even is going to be looking like next year, and some of the players just don't think it's worth their time anymore probably to pursue, especially when, as FormaL says, I mean, this was the crowd here at Major 3 in Toronto for Call of Duty, and he was like, yeah, wow, that crowd is insane. Like, why am I playing Halo? I should be back in front of these boys playing Call of Duty again, just like how it was back in the day. So maybe this moment, or just watching this clip, pushed FormaL in a certain direction, or maybe his mind was made up somewhat before that yeah, this is going to be his last year competing in Halo. And is it just going to be his last year full stop? That would probably be my guess. I don't really see FormaL returning to play competitive on another game again. I mean, when he retired from COD, he expected to just retire. Like, he thought that was it. He thought it was career over. Just do content, you know, maybe play Warzone on a bit of a competitive level, I don't know, something like that. But then, of course, he found the passion and the love for Halo again, and it's not like FormaL's lost the passion to compete, but he found it in Halo, and now, you know, he doesn't want to scrim Halo all day, every day, which I totally understand. But is he going to want to come back to COD and compete in COD and scrim that all day, every day? Probably not either. The main hurdle, I think, for FormaL really is, where would he go? Because this OpTic team, you know, they're not going to bring back FormaL. It just wouldn't make any sense. With the team that OpTic currently have, you know, unless Dashy somehow just, like, is washed all of a sudden and they need, like, a veteran AR to come into the team, like, maybe FormaL makes sense in that case. But in any other worlds, and we've seen FormaL and Dashy play together before, like, FormaL could come in for Kenny, obviously, but, like, we saw them play back in Cold War, and it didn't really work. Like, FormaL and Dashy just, you know, FormaL was kind of past it at that point anyway. Not in terms of, like, ability, because obviously we know that he's still got that, and he's been killing it in the Halo world. But in terms of caring about COD, FormaL was past it, and it's not like FormaL's going to leave OpTic to go and play for, like, Minnesota Rocker, is he? Let's be real. Unless he's, like, insanely passionate about the return. I just don't think that's going to be happening. So my expectation is that, you know, FormaL's end of his time in Halo is probably just going to be the end of his competing days now, unless he, you know, goes on to do competing in some other, you know, as I say, Warzone or some, like, Battle Royale could be possible, or xDefiant. I mean, is that impossible, right? Given that there is going to be a competitive scene for this game, and I'm sure there are going to be former Call of Duty players getting involved. Zero most certainly is. Pristini most certainly is, to our understanding. Is there room there for FormaL to compete in xDefiant? I mean, if he likes the game enough, it's potentially not out of the realms of possibility. So very much interested your thoughts on that in the comments section below. Just before we get into the matches, wanted to mention this abaZy, because there's been lots of talk. When's abaZy returning? Of course, old school MLG and then most recently Esports Engine guy. Now, the Esports Engine sale to the ESL Facebook group, I think, was rather controversial behind the scenes, and basically abaZy has had some non-compete clause. I think, unfortunately for him, because of his role in the team, because he was like president or whatever, as president of the company, I'm not exempt because the non-competes were banned, but if you're president, it's like, it doesn't apply, basically. So I think it's February the 12th, maybe he mentions, the date that he can actually come back, and he's looking for, you know, all opportunities to dive back into the space and make an impact. So that's the update on abaZy. These are the 4 games of today, and they're not the best, but they are very important in many ways. If Seattle beat Boston, which they should, and I think that they will, and if Boston lose again, embarrassingly, it's going to be even more embarrassing, but Seattle can effectively lock up champs today, I think. Like, if they win this series, I think they'll get to, like, 160, will they? Which is, you know, 160 might not be enough, but another 10 points over that will be enough, and they're going to get there. So that's big for them. Vegas, they beat OpTic last weekend. I don't think they can replicate that success against New York, but I do think that they can put up a fight here. New York have just, you know, if they're beating Surge, New York, if they're being close with FaZe, I think they should be able to handle it against Vegas. And I think New Yorkers all realize, okay, this Vegas team are pretty feisty. Like, we've got to treat them with maybe more respect than OpTic did. Gorillas Miami last game of the day, another really big one. It could be a fun game to watch just because it's going to be some interesting COD on display. I will take Miami as the favourite. The real 50-50 series, though, to me is Ravens-Thieves, which is massively important. Again, if Thieves win, you've got to think their champ spot is basically locked in and secured. But Ravens are going to be in an absolute dogfight for this World Championship spot. Down there with Vegas, down there with Gorillas, down there with Minnesota Rocker to try and take that final qualification spot, because it feels to me that Surge, Thieves, and probably Miami will make it. It's a real battle outside of that. As I said earlier, I think this has got Game 5 written all over it, and if I had to pick a winner, I'm probably picking Thieves, which I don't really want to do. But I don't know. Enjoy your thoughts on all this in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.